The 2023 Yamaha YZ450F has made quite the statement since its introduction, affirming itself as the bike of choice for many professionals and race teams alike, and really impressing us at the national launch in Victoria. But how does the YZ450 compare against its competitive set? Well, to find out, we're putting it up against the GasGas MC450. This is the 2023 model, but as we know, this platform has been around for a few years. So we're at the Wollongong Motorcycle Club. It's Japan versus Europe. We've got an intermediate rider on hand in myself and a pro on hand in the form of Glenn Kearney. So let's see which 450 motocross bike is best. The 450 motocross segment has undergone big changes for the 2023 model year, with fresh bikes from KTM, Husqvarna, Honda and Yamaha, not to mention a new Kawasaki KX450 on the horizon. Here we've got one of the newcomers of the class in the YZ450F going up against the elder statesman in some ways, the GasGas MC450. Now, unlike those versions from KTM and Husqvarna, the GasGas is carryover and it uses the older style platform that's been on the KTM since about 2019, but of course got updated on that bike in 2023. So by rights, it means that the GasGas should be a little bit softer edged, a little bit mellow, maybe a little bit more user-friendly based on our impressions of the 2023 KTM and Husqvarna. It's also a bike that is very simple in nature. Electric start, one riding mode, no traction control. It's a bike that's light, and in this comparison, it's a bike that's also more affordable. It's about $500 cheaper on paper than the Yamaha, but there's also a $1,500 rebate available for the 2023 MC450 at the moment. So it's about $2,000 cheaper, like for like, looking at these bikes. That's because we're expecting the GasGas to update to the new 2024 platform, which will align it with the Husqvarna and KTM options. So there's still a lot to like about this bike. Check out our single review of it, but it is really user-friendly and mellow, and I'm really interested to see how it compares with the YZ. We reckon the GasGas focuses on value where it matters for everyday riders. It might have cast triple clamps and plain silver wheels, components that are upgradable at the owner's discretion, but look closely and it bristles with quality components including braided brake lines, hydraulic Brembo clutch and brakes, CNC machined hubs and ODI lock-on grips. So the YZ450, there wasn't really much that went unchanged for 2023. We rode this bike at its national launch at Ride Park in Victoria. New engine, new chassis, new ergonomics, new technology, but a bike also that's purportedly lighter, slimmer, flatter in terms of the seat, and really brings a new way of thinking with how Yamaha kind of tackles the 450 brief. It's supposed to be more user-friendly as well. So I feel like the GasGas, although it's an older model, it's a really good gauge to see whether Yamaha has achieved its objective and indeed created a better 450. This bike is more expensive in this comparison, about $2,000, as I said, when you consider the rebates and everything being offered on the GasGas, but it's a brand new model, so you know it's going to be future-proof for quite a few years yet. The Yamaha takes a big step forward in this comparison by offering smartphone-based riding apps and diagnostics, as well as switchable on-the-go riding modes, traction control, launch control, and more. There are some big fundamental differences worth noting here as well. An aluminium frame and spring forks, as opposed to the MC450F steel frame and air fork setup. The YZ also runs Dunlop MX33 tyres instead of the Maxxis Max Cross rubber shod to the GasGas. In person, the Yamaha feels slightly slimmer through the middle with a flatter seat, but in truth, both bikes offer great ergos. But enough of that, let's hit Kembla. Well, another great day at the office here at Mount Kembla, and we're lucky enough to have been joined by professional rider Glenn Kearney. Welcome again.
Thanks for having me along. It's been a great day.
It's been really good to get your insights once again. What we quickly discovered, how different are these bikes? We've got Euro versus Japanese, steel frame versus aluminium, got the air fork versus the spring fork, and they kind of turned out the way they rode on track was very similar, wasn't it? They were very, very different.
Exactly, they're very different bikes, completely different feels. You know, both 450 motocross bikes are both on the stopwatch, very similar in time, but completely different feels, which was pretty exciting. Something to ride them back to back's a good thing to do and see the differences.
Glenn, I'll be honest, I've spent past few weeks on this GasGas 450 and I've really gotten used to it. I'm an intermediate rider. You're coming at this from a slightly different angle in that you're a professional, but stability, predictability, it's balanced, and it's really easy to gauge what the bike's doing at all times. For me, that's meant across a 30-minute moto, I'm not tiring out as quickly. The air fork doesn't quite telegraph all the feedback that this one does, so I feel like I'm calmer as a rider, and the engine feels mellower as well. Even like the frame, like I don't claim to be, a tuning expert, but it feels like there's more flex and forgiveness in the frame. Did you kind of find that?
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Like you said, they're so different, and what you feel with we didn't go into depth in changing clickers or suspension settings or any of that sort of thing. We just rode the bikes as they were, but initially you're starting to get the feel that the GasGas is maybe more of a heavier feel, more planted sort of bike, really absorbs everything, probably more forgiving in terms of like flex with the frame, I think, and the softer suspension and the more mellow moto with the really tractable power. Then you come across to the Yami and it feels really racy, really lively, very precise. It feels like you could change direction wherever you wanted, but it also takes a lot more effort to stay on top of it and keep it rolling like that. So to me, the Yami's like a real racist sort of feel bike, and the Gas is a bit more planted, a bit more mellow, old school versus new school feel.
The Yami is racy, and the ergos of it, I found it really easy to shift weight to the front and rear. I feel like, when you're back-to-backing it with this, it feels like there's more going on with the suspension in the front end. Obviously, it's a new bike. It's a newer bike than this one. You could probably tune around that with clickers and things like that, as you said, but the engine has this crazy ability to just have power exactly when you want it. Did you find that too?
Yes, it is very responsive, really responsive. I think one of the first things I noticed was either the length of the gears or the gear ratios, how it's kind of tall geared, the Yamaha, and I feel like I'm a gear lower on the Yamaha everywhere than I was on the GasGas. So, second, third on this is third, fourth on the GasGas, and I think the rev range, how long you can hold a gear on the Yamaha is longer. So a different style of riding, but like you're saying, you could still lug this thing, but the power is so responsive. You could really get out of a turn, but the flip of the coin, if you're not on your throttle properly, it can really be quite jerky in a turn to get around, where the GasGas was more mellow and more tractable sort of power riding through the turn.
And to add to that point, that felt more susceptible to flaming out through slower corners, correct?
It did, yes. Yeah, definitely run it. And that's why you feel you had to run a sort of a lower gear.
So if it's your money, we're looking at, with the rebate at the moment, this is about $12,500. That's closer to $14,500, both right away. This obviously has less tech. It doesn't have the riding modes or the launch control or the traction control, but for veteran riders, I feel like it's probably a case of less is more. Like, this is simple and you know what you're getting. It's very predictable.
I think, for the guy that doesn't ride every week in, week out, to go out and do a motocross race, that would be easier to ride, more forgiving. And then for you guy that likes the track bike and a real aggressive sort of power, but it's saying that you can still swap maps on this to the mellow map and all that sort of thing as well.
Against the stopwatch, it's the Yamaha that just edges ahead of the GasGas during our test day at Kembla with Glenn on board. But there isn't a lot in it. Away from the circuit, we'd argue the GasGas offers a very small advantage in panel fitment and finish, together with superior toolless suspension adjustment and toolless air filter removal. Both are great bikes that would make valid arguments for different styles of rider. Ultimately though, there can only be one winner. So if it's your hard-earned, you got to pick one of these two. What's it going on?
I think I'd probably go with the Yamaha this time around.
There it is. And although I'm, inclined to say this, and I have gotten used to this, I agree with Glenn. I think there is scope for growth with this. We haven't really played around with the maps. We haven't really played around with the clickers too much. And as I'm doing more laps, I'm getting more comfortable on it. So look, thank you as always, Glenn. Great to get your feedback.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to the next one. Thank you.